Gurdjieff had always said that whatever happens after death, it is affected by this life here. The only life we can work on directly is this life here. And so if we work in this life, it will help us in any future life we may have. If we don't work in this life, then we perish like a dog. And the prospects for any life after physical death are that much grimmer. In the Help for the Deceased exercise, he presents a picture where after death, the souls of the people we've known continue around us, and we continue to have a relationship with those whom we were related to by blood. Now, the relationship is ordinarily a passive one. We're related to them, but we're passive, they're passive. In these exercises, because there are several exercises given in slightly different ways, Gurdjieff is saying that the relationship between us can become a more active one, that we can actually send them help even after they've died, which of course opens the possibility that someone could send us help after the death of our physical bodies. And he also says that if you work in this way, sending a force to the deceased people, it helps you in this life as well. It helps your development. And in fact, that's part of the reason he says so little about life after death, because he said people shouldn't be fantasizing about what's going to happen after they die. They should be working now. And then that will look after everything else. Gurdjieff always said, you have to love your parents. Even if they were bad parents, still you must love them. And there's even in one of the transcripts where he says, have compassion for your parents because they have to answer for you in another world. And which is unusual in terms of the system as presented to Uspensky and again in Beelzebub's Tales. But this idea of having compassion for your parents and loving them was clearly very important to Gurdjieff. There were the stories about people who'd been with Uspensky, went to see Gurdjieff in 1948, and they asked him questions about the ray of creation. And he said, well, I have a question for you. Are you a good child to your parents? One of the things about this Help for the Deceased exercise is that it's shown me that the relationship with our parents is a dynamic one, and that it can continue and change even after their death. And that what might not have been possible for us while they were alive in the physical body can be possible for us now. And that our work can actually assist them, so that the parent with whom we enter into contact is more like the essence of the parent. All the personality drops away, and there's just connection between our essence and their essence. And it's very different from the relationship which is full of recriminations and resentments, or even likes and affections, things like that. It's a very impartial sort of love. It's like almost an acknowledgement of the fact of the essence relationship, which includes in itself love, but it's not love as we ordinarily know it. So this relationship with the parents is really critical for one's further development, because I suspect that there is a limit on how far we can advance as individuals until we have a sort of essence peace with our parents, that there is some way in which our beings are shared, and it's ineluctable. You can't escape from it. And this exercise enables one to relate to one's parents more from essence than from personality. Now, as I've mentioned, some people have also worked on it with people who are alive and that they're related to by blood, and they're finding something similar too. So there are at least several people that are finding that this is the case. And in this way, the help for the deceased exercise is related to all of Gurdjieff's work. It's not some sort of weird or eccentric tangent or excrescence. It's actually in the center of the work because it's the development of one's own essence. And given the essence relationship with our parents, if our essence develops, then that relationship must be developed. And this was a way of making that relationship more conscious and developing it more intensely. Now, having said that, with what you've just mentioned, Ilan, yes, Gurdjieff does say in the transcripts the relationship with the mother is the very closest. I could be wrong, it may be my projection, but I think he said something like, you were in her womb for 42 weeks or something like that. But he says she bore you, so that there is a particularly close relationship with one's mother. But I believe that the essence relationship with one's father is real. And Gurdjieff said it went with the blood. He said it can apply also to siblings, to grandparents, to uncles, to aunts. And I also believe that that's true. But as is so often the case, if one begins first with one's own parents and can find something there, it makes the other relationships then more fertile ground for work. Because Gurdjieff did say to Uspensky, we cannot understand what happens after death completely. We can't get the full picture. Our minds are simply not capable of it. Impossible. But yet something could be understood. And it was important, said Gurdjieff, to understand that what you can grasp depends on the level of your being. So and furthermore, that it depends on the efforts you make now in this life. So that's why he doesn't set out visions of the afterlife. He just brings methods of work and says certain things which are, I think, designed to make one value working now. So when he had the famous conversation with Uspensky about recurrence, he said, what's the point of speaking about recurrence if you don't understand that if you're not working, recurrence doesn't even exist for you? That it's the work you do now in this moment which determines what will happen. And that's all you can do. You can't work directly on the future. But what's interesting with the help with the deceased is that he actually says in 1944 that the souls of the deceased are all around us, but we don't know where they are. They're somewhere in space, but we don't know where they are. And that's why he mentioned his mother. He knew where his mother was, and his mother could find other people. Now, it seems bizarre to me, and I can't believe that all our hopes of being able to assist our parents and work with our parents, deceased parents, depend on Gurdjieff's mother. Maybe it was a special help that was available for people while Gurdjieff was alive. But I can't believe it could just be that. that's why the blood connection is important. I don't know where my parents are, but I would say I do know that with persistence and effort, some connection can be made. And that's what's critical. Now, what happens in how to reconcile that with what he said to Uspensky about how when you die, the body returns to the earth, an animating principle goes to the moon, but unless you've made something for yourself, there's no real post-mortem existence. And what he says in Beelzebub about the Kesjan body and the soul rising, the third body rising to an appropriate place, it would be possible. It would be possible to reconcile them, but it's not easy to explain. Basically, and I don't think Gurdjieff ever dismissed anything that was said by what he considered the religions founded by genuine messengers from above. That's Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Judaism, Hinduism, and this thing he calls Lamaism, which I don't think we know quite what he meant by Lamaism or who Lama was. Some people are very confident, but I'm not persuaded. I don't think he's saying anything they're saying is wrong. I think he's saying they are only a partial glimpse of the truth. So that's why I say that in my work as a priest, when I do the requiem masses and funerals and things like that, I believe there's some effect. I'm quite sure of that. Exactly how it works, I wouldn't want to limit anything. I wouldn't even limit the idea that Christ himself takes an active role, because I do believe that the Christ can be active in this world. But how that's possible, I'm not interested in conjecturing. Gurdjieff even says that the idea of reincarnation is not wholly wrong. He says it's an approximation to the idea of recurrence. Now, we can't even understand recurrence completely because we're told it doesn't take place in time, it takes place in eternity. But we can only speak about it as if it took place in time. We can only speak about previous and prior recurrences and later recurrences, but they can't be previous and they can't be later. They're somehow simultaneous, but how this can be, we don't understand. So this again would be, this starts to then become almost a theoretical question. And that's why I haven't really gone into it, how to reconcile all these different approaches. But I do feel that what Gurdjieff is saying is that if one doesn't work, then the physical body returns to the earth, something passes to the moon, and there's a certain possibility of existence after death. Maybe even he's correct in the 1940s, there is a definite existence after death. But the way I would explain it is what Mr. 80 said to me. Someone that I was related to died. And Mr. 80 said to me, no one that's ever been brought into existence truly perishes. Whatever has come into creation must remain in creation. But, Mr. 80 said to me, your relationship to him continues. To what is he related? Is he related to an evolving part of the universe, an evolving part of the creation, or not? And I think Mr. 80 said that he was passive at the moment, but did not have to remain passive if I evolved. Now, I may have mixed that in my memory with some of the things from Gurdjieff, but that is how I understood. I definitely had that understanding from Mr. 80 at the time, I just can't remember quite what he said. But what I am clear him saying is he's come into the creation. He can't leave the creation. He continues. But to what, and he's related to you. The connection can't be broken. And to what is he connected? An evolving, someone evolving, or someone devolving? And he certainly gave me to understand that if I evolve, he evolves. And that's how I think of it now. Bennett said that this age is marked by increasing deterioration. The rate of deterioration is increasing. And I think that, generally speaking, that's correct. Gurdjieff said that we were created in order to live until we had perfected the Kesjan body, until we had achieved a certain conscious development and crystallized something. But that nature changed our way of existence so that what nature obtained for us, from us, what nature obtained from humanity, it would obtain not by the quality of the vibrations, but by the quantity of the vibrations, the quantity of people rather than the quality of people. I think our work and the work of all the great religions must be in the opposite direction, to be increasing the quality of what we bring into creation, to increase the transformation of the higher, so that, as it says in the Our Father, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Well, actually, in the Greek, it's thy will, as it is done in heaven, also be done on earth. The higher always comes first. So that's our task, to manifest something higher. And Gurdjieff also said that in the days of Jesus, it was not necessary to speak about the first conscious shock, remembering myself, because people could remember themselves more easily. It was necessary to speak about the second conscious shock, which we can take as the transformation of negative emotion into positive emotion. That's why Jesus speaks about love. But today, Gurdjieff says you can't just love on demand, because maybe in Jesus' day people could. Jesus spoke to them about the commandment to love, and that shocked them, and they were able to actualize it to some extent. But we have to begin by remembering ourselves. So all these are ways of saying that what we are faced with today is a situation in which it is harder to work. More work is demanded of us, and more work of a basic level. And this is a great honor for us. It's a privilege and a responsibility. And part of it has to be remaining apart from the delusion and madness that we see in the world around us. And sometimes it's difficult not to be affected by it, because it is so all-pervasive. It seems to be all-pervasive. These ideologies even make their way into the Gurdjieff groups. People in the Gurdjieff groups start sprouting these ideas from a lower culture. And it's something then that has to be harmonized in the right way and raised to a new level. I've seen some of your videos. I've seen a number of them. I have a rough idea of what I think you're speaking about, and I actually agree with you. Our work is to be present so that we can be separate from it. I don't think it's possible to just oppose it directly, because that brings us down to their level. And if anything, it feeds them with our energy. But we remain separate, and we try and be sane, and to bring understanding and being whenever we have to deal with the manifestations of the panic and the madness which are afflicting our world.
Another way of saying what you were saying is to be in the world but not of it. To keep that keep that separateness. To understand, to be aware.
Is that Bennett found from his own experience, and I am persuaded that something survives death, but it will be passive and won't have a power of intentional movement or its own independent volition unless that power of independent volition is realized in this life. That is, unless one works for real I in this life, that does not take place after death. One remains fairly passive. Now, what else might happen after death, we don't know. Christian ideas of redemption, other ideas can come into play. I'm sure that they do. But if one works for the development of an independent will in this life, it will have an effect on one's survival after death.